The night Arav almost walked away forever began with a ringing phone and a lie he had practiced for weeks. The city lights blurred through his windshield as rain traced thin lines across the glass, each drop sounding like a second slipping away. When the call ended, he pulled over, rested his forehead against the steering wheel, and whispered the truth he had been avoiding. If he left tonight, he would lose the only person who ever made the future feel like home. Mira stood on the balcony of their small apartment, watching the same rain fall, counting the floors below as if numbers could calm the storm inside her chest. She had learned the sound of his footsteps, the way the door creaked when he was tired, the exact silence that meant he was afraid. That night, the silence stretched too long. She thought of the promises they had made on simpler days, when forever felt easy to say, because it felt impossible to lose. They had met years earlier in a crowded cafe where the power went out mid-song and strangers sang together in the dark. Arav offered Mira his phone flashlight so she could find her way to the counter, and she laughed at how seriously he held it, as if lighting her path was the most important task in the world. From that moment, they learned each other in small, careful ways. He discovered she wrote letters she never sent. She learned he carried guilt like a second shadow, inherited from expectations he never asked for. Love grew quietly at first. It showed up in shared breakfasts and mismatched socks, in the way they fought and made up, in the certainty that someone would be there at the end of the day. But life, impatient and loud, soon demanded choices. Arav received an offer that promised security and respect, the kind his family had dreamed for him since he was a child. It also promised distance, a different city, a different life. Mira tried to be brave. She told him she would support whatever he chose, and she meant it. But support did not stop the ache of imagining mornings without him, or the fear that time would slowly make them strangers. Arav, caught between duty and desire, told himself sacrifice was love. He started working late, missing dinners, rehearsing a goodbye he pretended was temporary. Their first real fracture came on a Sunday afternoon when the rain refused to stop. Mira asked him a simple question. Are we choosing each other, or are we just waiting to see who lets go first? Arav had no answer ready, and the silence that followed felt heavier than any argument. That night, they slept on opposite edges of the bed, backs turned, each staring into the dark with different versions of the same fear. Challenges piled up quietly, like unpaid bills of the heart. Long-distance plans that sounded logical but felt hollow. Family pressure that turned phone calls into interrogations. Jealousy born not from mistrust but from absence. They argued about small things because the big ones hurt too much to touch. There were moments Mira thought leaving would be easier than staying unsure. There were moments Arav believed love alone was not enough to build a life. The breaking point arrived when Arav finally said the words he had been hiding. I think I should go, Mira nodded, because she loved him enough to not beg. But the nod broke something fragile inside her. She packed a bag and went to her sister's place, leaving behind the apartment filled with echoes of their laughter. Days passed without messages. The quiet was unbearable. Arav wandered through empty rooms, noticing how every corner carried her presence. The mug she always used, the book she marked with folded pages, the balcony where she watched the rain. He realized then that success without her felt like winning a race with no one at the finish line. Meanwhile, Mira confronted her own truth. Love was not about shrinking her needs to fit someone else's fears. It was about choosing each other fully, even when it was terrifying. She wrote a letter she did not intend to send, pouring every doubt and hope onto paper. And in doing so, she found clarity. Forever could not be a vague promise. It had to be an active choice, made every day. The reunion was not cinematic. No dramatic music, no grand gestures. Arav showed up at her sister's door, soaked from the rain, eyes red from sleepless nights. He did not offer excuses. He offered honesty. He said he was scared, that he had been running toward approval instead of happiness, that he did not want a life where she was a memory. He said he wanted forever, but only if they built it together, with equal courage. Mira listened, heart pounding. She told him she was tired of being strong alone. She told him love should not feel like waiting in the dark. They spoke for hours, laying every fear on the table. The solution was not perfect, but it was theirs. Arav would turn down the offer and find another path. Mira would pursue her writing without apology. They would face uncertainty side by side, not from opposite ends of a phone line. Choosing each other did not erase their problems. Money was tight. Careers moved slower than planned. There were nights when doubt returned, uninvited. But now, when challenges appeared, they faced them openly. They learned to argue without tearing each other down, to listen without preparing a defense, to apologize without keeping score. Time passed, marked by small victories. A published article. A job that paid enough. A tiny celebration for no reason at all. Their love matured, less about passion and more about presence. Forever stopped being a word they said and became a rhythm they lived. Years later, on a calm evening after another long day, they stood on the same balcony, the city glowing softly below. The rain had stopped. Arav took Mira's hand, not to promise something grand, but to remind her he was there. She leaned into him, feeling the steady beat of a heart that had finally learned where it belonged. Their story was not about finding love once. It was about choosing it again and again, especially when it was hard. The message they carried forward was simple and powerful. Forever is not guaranteed by vows or plans. It is built through courage, honesty, and the willingness to stay when leaving would be easier. And in that choice, made every day, love becomes a home that time cannot take away.